All right, so we can cool here with Steve Hackett. How you doing, man?
Very good, thank you. Great.
Congratulations on Under a Mediterranean Sky, man. I love that album.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, it's taken off here in the UK. It's in the charts. Number 7 in the charts. Number 5, number 7. It seems to be doing very well.
How did you come up
That's
with the
great.
concept?
Sorry,
How did you come up with the concept for this?
with the
The concept for this album here.
concept.
Yeah.
Well, funnily enough, it was my wife Jo who came up with the concept. I said to her that I was going to make I wanted to make an acoustic album, and she said it would be nice to do something which um, was more broad than something that was the sum of its influences, something that sounded classical or flamenco, to broaden it, to take on board different regions of world music, um, different instruments, so that it took it further, you know, made it more of a landscape exercise. And I had a wonderful time doing the album, and it seems to have taken off big time, which is great. So very, very happy.
Now you mentioned all the different instruments that are on the album. It sounds like I hear an electric guitar, but it's not plugged in on there almost.
That's right. There is an electric guitar not plugged in at one point, and it's just miking up the strings of a non-plugged in electric guitar, because I wanted to play that in a flamenco style, and I just wanted the snap of it. I just wanted it to sound very metallic, um, and but I didn't want it to sound. Um, I didn't want it to sound like a nylon guitar at that point. So that particular track, which is the Dervish and the Jinn, I'm playing a rhythm roll on it, but I do play the Arabian Oud on it as well. So there's uh, there's that, and there's Malik Mansurov playing the tar as well, small stringed instrument, and I played some 6-string acoustic on it as well. So basically, I let I let other people shine on that one. It's not a virtuoso exercise for me, unless it's the rhythmic aspect of 3 things I was doing there: the electric, the 6-string, and the Arabian Oud.
Truly,
So
truly is a beautiful album, and it sounds like a score to a movie almost.
yeah, it's funny, isn't it? People have been saying that it's very movie-like. People have been saying that about my recent rock albums as well. That there's an aspect of that. Um, I guess it's because I love orchestras, and I do like working with those sounds. Um, so there's some orchestral soundscapes on the album, and real. Um, it was a wonderful journey to be able to undertake, considering that journey had to be undertaken from home, sitting in my living room, and it's something where the imagination takes flight. I was able to revisit a lot of places that I've either played in or I've been as a tourist. Places such as Egypt and Jordan, trips along the Nile, to Petra, a kind of Indiana Jones trip to various places, to Morocco, to Marrakesh, to the Atlas Mountains. At one point, we drove out to the Atlas Mountains, and we came to a place called Ait Ben Haddou, which was used in the movie Gladiator, where they have a sequence where it's in the movie it's Zacabar, Roman province. It's the actual it's the actual stuff that they used for that. So we got to move around that, and that was very, very beautiful, very, very, very inspiring.
Now you've seen a lot of changes throughout the music industry. When you first started the, from records to 8
Yeah.
tracks to cassettes to digital now.
Yeah.
What's it like recording an album now compared to what it was like recording back then?
Well, I think, the change from analog to digital was something that I started working with in the mid 1980s, when Steve Howe and I were working together doing GTR. We were working digitally for the first time, and the nice thing is that you don't have any deterioration in terms of quality. Already, when I was using analog, I was mixing things down and bouncing tracks like crazy. And there's always the danger that things will soften up when you do that. But in recent years, even when we were working with DATs and ADATs, we were finding that we were sometimes in excess of 200 tracks on something. That's me and Roger King. We just ended up doing that just because you can. You start doing things, and at one time with analog, things were sharing tracks. But these days, you don't have to share the tambourine track with anything else. It has a track on its own and an effect that suits it on its own. So it's a case of almost limitless memory. It's got as much memory as your computer. So there's always that. It'll drive you completely crazy in the end, but I think that working with detail freaks, as I do, it does mean that you can explore fine detail. So the devil's in the detail, and we explore it like crazy.
Now, you're known for a style known as guitar tapping, and that's something that Van Halen is famously known for. Do you think you influenced him?
Well, he says I did, apparently. Whether he saw me when I was with Genesis or whether it was a solo thing of mine, I don't know. But he credited me with that influence. So I'm very happy to be part of that. To inspire great people is quite an honor. I do think he was a fabulous guitarist. Sad to see his passing. We never did get to hook up and say hi, but I think he was, a unique and great player.
Now, I understand you just put out a book last year. Is that right?
That's right. Yes. Yeah. We it was an autobiography, Genesis in My Bed, and that's been out in hardback. There's going to be a paperback edition with some extra stuff. So I'm writing some extra stuff. There'll be some differences, but basically, the publishers have been very pleased with the way that it's gone, and asked me if I would do some additional stuff. So I'm working on that as well as other stuff. I'm always working on a number of things at the same time. So we have the acoustic album. There was a live album at the end of last year, and we had. So I'm working on rock stuff as well as this orchestral stuff and acoustic stuff. So it's the whole package. It keeps coming with me.
That book's got to be a real treat for Genesis fans, man. I mean, you really divulged the story of how everything went out.
Yeah, it's my take on Genesis and the success of it. First of all, it wasn't really it was a slow burn. Genesis was not an instant overnight success, but we built a following. I guess we were what people would have called in the 1960s an underground band at first. We were that, it was in America, effective college radio, which largely broke the band at that point until we could get on some TV stuff. TV made a huge difference, of course, as you can imagine. To do a coast to coast TV show meant that from one moment to the next, you could suddenly play to 20,000 people in Dallas, having not played it for years and years and years. I mean, just the effect of one TV show, never mind a hit album.
Now, is it true Peter Gabriel left the band that you actually considered making an instrumental band?
Well, I don't think that Genesis ever really seriously considered that. That might have suited Phil Collins at that time because he was thinking of himself as really, a jazz rock player, but and much more than as a vocalist. So that's something that changed very quickly because Genesis were really songwriters rather than just tunesmiths. So everyone was thinking in terms of what is the vocalist going to do, and having auditioned a whole bunch of other people, Phil was definitely the right man for the job. I'd recommended him for the job. Tony and Mike were resistant at first, and I remember when I went to Phil's first wedding, and John Anderson from Yes was there, and I was meeting him for the first time. He said, Phil's got a great voice. Why didn't you make him the lead singer, and get in an instrumentalist to fill in live? And that's precisely what we ended up doing. But we crossed a number of bridges before we got there because there was some resistance at core. The idea of singing drummers don't look great live, but Phil got around that in an incredible way. And hey, what does it matter whether you're singing behind a kit of drums or not? If you've got a great voice, that's where you ought to be. There's a number of great singing drummers that I've worked with. As the guy that works with Jarby these days happens to have a great voice. There's also Nick DiVigilio, who has a great voice and plays wonderful drums, who's also worked with Genesis, of course, and on some things that I've done. So I've been working with him recently. Also Phil Earhart of Kansas with drums and, various things. Craig Blundell, who's on all these, the Art of Drumming TV series, which has been on our screens so much recently. So drums are getting a big plug on the Arts channel over here.
Now, when Peter left the band, did you ever think about maybe just packing it in? Did you guys know what you were going to do? Was it a scary time for you, or?
When Pete left, well, actually, nobody really knew if the band was going to have a future or not, because Peter Gabriel was very much the star of the show, as a great player, as a great singer, and as a great frontman. So yeah, times were looking extremely uncertain, but we pulled through. I personally think we could have stayed together as a 5-piece, and I think that had the band sort of buried their differences, it would have been much easier to do that. And I think it would have taken an interesting turn, an alternative future to the one that it took. But gradually it just became more and more difficult to play with Genesis if you wanted to do music that was challenging. And I wanted to do music that was well, let's put it this way. I wanted to do stuff that included world music and was more virtuosic and borrowed openly from classical and jazz and many other things, blues, all sorts of stuff. And I thought that the future for Genesis should have been the same as the Beatles. It gets more weird and wonderful. Orchestras get involved, the whole thing. But there was such a resistance to all of that. I thought, well, the only way these dreams are going to happen is to have complete autonomy, to be your own boss, and to leave and work with people who were often very strange, weird, and wonderful, and extremely capable, and to work with orchestras, which has been a lifelong quest for me. So, no distinction between groups and orchestras; they can both sound huge and wonderful. but no point trying to do it all entirely in-house. You might as well make solo albums.
Now, the last tour that you were on with Genesis, I heard that you guys spent 400,000 pounds on the stage setup back then, which is like 2 million today. What was that like, spending all that on a stage back then?
Well, I don't remember spending quite that kind of money. I don't remember that. I remember at times we ended up becoming a research and development facility for the use of lasers, which didn't always work. And I remember something like 120,000 pounds at that time just went down the hole, or so it seemed. And we really weren't making money live, because we were putting on what were very big productions for that time. And of course, I left in 1977. So it may well be that Genesis have plowed in that kind of money since. It wouldn't surprise me, but I doubt they will be doing it to lose money. Can't see that.
Now, you were inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2010, man. That's a great feat. What was it like having everyone together to accept the award?
Very nice to be with everybody. Wonderful to see so many luminaries either on stage performing or in the audience and receiving awards. So I think it is a great institution, something that has often honored the Brits, but it's come from America. Personally, we were the first so-called progressive band to be inducted. While I was there, I said publicly I thought that Yes should be inducted, because I knew that I was working with Chris Squire at the time. The late great Chris Squire was a friend of mine. We were doing various projects together, and I said I thought that they should be honoured, and they were. Of course, unfortunately, that was post Chris, because he had passed on at that point. Other people who have been honoured in recent years, I always thought the Paul Butterfield Blues Band was this incredibly overlooked, extraordinary phenomenon, and they were honoured, I gather, in recent years. So I'm thrilled that they were given the honour that they were due. And what is also nice is that they don't just honour people that are household names. It might be the writers that have provided the songs that have become huge hits for other people. So it's very nice that they do that. So people sometimes get their moment of glory. Unfortunately, a little bit too late. They may have passed on, but the main thing is that it functions as an institution, and it's a roll call of honor. So that is really something that I think is incredibly valuable, and I wish we had something like that in Britain, but we really don't.
Do you think it's kind of a joke that so many great rock bands are getting passed up throughout the recent years for hip hop bands to win the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame award?
Well, I think I'm not going to knock any genre. Sometimes genres are often in an early stage of development themselves, and you can never really say for certain that one thing is great and something else is not. It all depends on what people are doing with it, it seems to me. So if you've got a pan genre effect, there's nothing to stop you wandering into hip hop and off somewhere else.
Now, I understand that Genesis is doing a reunion tour this year. Were you asked to be part of it, or did you speak with them? Or
well, now believe it or not, this thing was supposed to happen last year, and my ticket sales have been on for about 3 months, and then Genesis booked their show on the back of mine exactly the same time. So it would have been absolutely no chance of me joining them. And I think that again they rescheduled rescheduled their stuff to happen in April this year. But then my stuff in the UK is supposed to be happening in September. And once again, my stuff has been on sale for months and months and months. And then Genesis announced they're touring exactly the same time. In fact, we are playing the same town on the same night at one point, which is in Manchester. But fortunately, there are two shows. They're doing two shows. So all the people that have bought tickets for mine and they want to see both bands, they can go the next night. Their tickets will be valid for that. But once again, you know, I think Genesis is a very competitive band. So I guess there's been a fear of the fact that I might be the keeper of the flame with a little bit too much success doing this. And I guess you have to say, you know, well, from my point of view, they're going to celebrate the 1980s. I will celebrate the 1970s, the era that John Lennon said that we were one of the bands that he was listening to. So that era, in a way, is a bit of an abandoned place for Genesis, who I think, you know, the emphasis for them is very much on the 80s and the pop hits, whereas for me, Genesis was the band that inspired other musicians, such as Eddie Van Halen, Brian May, Alex Lifeson. These people have gone on record, you know, saying that, you know, that was the influence. Fish, the band who were playing on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, playing our stuff in front of the band that I'm sitting there with. It's extraordinary the way it works. But hey, it's just nice that people remember it and that it's ongoing. I know that Genesis are calling it the last domino, so it's being advertised as their last tour. Meanwhile, mine, as Genesis Revisited, is a rolling show that involves not only the Genesis stuff but also solo stuff. So I don't just keep the museum doors open for what was in the glorious past, but also to do, you know, current material, new stuff. So when I'm out there this time, I'll be doing the whole of Seconds Out, the live album from 1977, and full-length versions of stuff, plus solo stuff. So I guess, you know, people can see both eras, and I know that a number of people will be COVID willing, vaccine willing, supposed to be coming to the UK, and I think that they'll make a point of seeing both bands. So there's a lot out there, or there will be, for Genesis fans. This is all very much vaccine dependent, of course, just like every other industry and every other traveling rock and roll circus.
Now, in the be a possibility of you and Peter Gabriel doing like a Genesis type tour?
You know, I've never really said to Pete, would he feel like doing something like this? The last time we all spoke about getting together, it was with Genesis, and what was on the table was the idea of doing Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. Now, I have to tell you, Peter Gabriel was very keen on it becoming a musical, as well as doing a number of shows. There was a resistance to that idea, not from me. I'll leave you to guess who, but you know, I think that lost Pete's enthusiasm right then and there. You know, back to band politics and all that kind of stuff. So, at some point, obviously, I'll say to Pete, if he would like to do something, that's fine. But I'm just happy to be pals and talk about everything, including the weather and how's your family and all of that. I don't really want any favors from people. I don't want to hit anyone up for anything at this stage. It's been a long and lustrous career for me. 50 years ago, I joined Genesis, and it's going strong. What can I tell you? Fingers are working. Very happy.
Are you guys all friendly, or do you guys talk at all still, or no?
Yeah, it's all friendly. yeah. But you know, when it comes down to the idea of doing music together, that's usually something that's kind of off limits. It's the big unspoken thing. So my only problem now is I have to do one more as I'm in a succession of things. So I have to love you and leave you at this stage.
Well, I really do appreciate your time. For those that are watching, they want to follow up, they want to get the album, they want to know more about maybe hopefully some tour dates this year, things like that. Where do they go to?
That would be to my website, which is hackettsongs.com. If they get that, then you can see everything. It's Hackett Songs, which is all one word, lowercase, of course. Hackettsongs.com will point you to everything, including the web store where you can buy the album, up and coming dates, videos, absolutely everything. Whole world of me on that stuff. So
Awesome. I appreciate your time. And
thank you so much.
this album, I'm looking forward to the rock album that you got coming out later this year.
Yeah, there'll be all sorts of stuff. Yeah, you know, it's but meanwhile, I'm very pleased this one's doing very well, you know.
Definitely.
So thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
All the best. Take care of yourself. All the best, man. Cheers.
Cheers.